quick. Here we are. Before we do that, actually, let's start with that. Let's start with your biggest transmission, and then we can go from there.
Biggest transmission. Well, when we talk about being conscious, you know, the way people keep banding this phrase around, like living consciously, and it's like, well, what does that mean? And because living unconsciously implies that you're not paying attention, you're reacting to everything. You're okay, you know, here's the 9 to 5, here's the grind, here's this. And I think people get the major distinction, but the intricacy of it, I don't think is really covered. What it means to be conscious, we're really, really, really into it. So for me, what living consciously means being fully in charge of what I put out in the world. I am being fully in charge and fully owning what I put out. We send a lot of signals unconsciously, and we all do. But conscious signals, sending a conscious signal is a very different story. So my transmission is, like everyone's transmission, the conscious signal I send out and the unconscious. The best part of all that is that the side of it that's conscious, I hope that I transmit the idea of seeking fulfillment and serving people and lifting yourself up and not giving, you know, I don't like to give handouts to people. I like to give hands up. So when I'm going past someone on the street and they're asking me for change, if I've got nowhere to be and I sit down with them and pet their dog, and they've always got a dog with them, you know, it's the cutest dog as well, right? So it's like I talk to them, and you know, you can give someone change, but what about if you give someone change? So you say, well, what's going on for you? Where are you? And you'll find out that they may be on a waiting list to get into a hostel, to get back on their feet, and all these kind of things. But I think one of the answers to living consciously is simply awareness, being fully aware of what's going on at all times. And this is something you need to take stock of every day. Something I must take stock of every day, because awareness for me, it's not just being aware of what I'm sending out, it's awareness of what's coming in, who's around me. So awareness, intention, focus is a big one. I used to have a real problem with focus, real problem. So my transmission is, I would say, is conscious growth. Conscious growth is what I encourage, and it's what I practice. And I would hope that that's my transmission.
Amazing. That's quite a transmission you have there. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
And just for those who don't know, do you want to just give a quick rundown, a quick introduction of who you are?
Yeah, my name is Amadeus Hellequin, and I was born, that's boring. Who am I? I'm just a guy standing in front of a computer, asking them to know, who am I? Who am I? That's a great question. That changes every day. I'd love to give you a concise answer about who I am and what I represent. And the fact is, it's multifaceted. My second name, Hellequin, means bringer of light. If you translate it into Hebrew, it's Beelzebub, which is wonderful. But the idea of Hellequin is also, it's the root word of where we get the word Harlequin from. And Harlequin means many-colored, multifaceted. In the Commedia dell'arte, in old Italian plays, it was a character that was invisible to the clown, but the audience could see the Harlequin, and there was that whole whacking the clown around the head, like, you know, punishing. That was where we get the phrase slapstick from. So I feel like the clowns of the world, which are all part of the stage, we're all, you know, these guys backstage are all friends. It's very much like the Commedia dell'arte. My character, who I am, is changing all the time, but the actor that would play Zani, the actor that would play Piero, the actor that would play Hellequin, Arlecchino, all those character actors, they were often played by just a handful of people. You know, sometimes it's just two people coming on and off and doing quick changes. And the idea of presenting to the world exactly the face that you need to accomplish that task. And I don't mean faking, I don't mean fronting, I don't mean it in the sense of hiding who you are, but going into a mode to accomplish a task you want to do. So who I am is so multifaceted right now. I'm someone that I do feel like I am just me, and you're gonna get the same me whether I'm alone or when I'm with people. But at the same time, I've got so many avenues that I'm traveling down that I do feel sometimes like I'm splintering and sending different modes of myself out. So it's like being, yeah, that's how it is. For me, I feel like I'm like 10 people in one, which should worry everybody, I'm sure. You know, I'm into conscious growth. I'm into being me. I like who I am. I love myself, and when I ask people who their favorite person is, I really love it if they answer me. You know, myself. I don't mean me. I mean them saying me.
Yeah.
If they say me, that's great. But that really happens. It doesn't happen often. And so who I am is I really like awakening people and tuning people into something grander, something more attuned to the way that we all seek to go as a race. And that's my biggest buzz. I've got to take this tea back out, otherwise it's going to be stewed. It's not a treacle.
And what are some of the ways that you go about getting that buzz?
I at the moment I'm loving these little small, these really kind of family knit, closely oriented communities where we discuss something in a focus. For instance, I'm a member of all these different groups. I'm into Chaos Magick. The Chaos Magick is about enhancing probabilities, but the trick of Chaos Magick is to find the probabilities that are worth enhancing. So my favorite way to do it is with magic, is with Chaos Magick and quantum mechanics, and the whole rule of the observer changes that which they are observing. That's one of the reasons that Chaos Magick can be explained. And communities of fellow people out there that are interested in the same things that I'm interested in, that's my favorite thing to get on board with, because it is a lonely journey when you're doing all this. But when you're with a team of people who are absolutely, zany and hyper intelligent, but also very dark humored and but for some reason the ilk among these chaots, as they're called, chaos magicians, they're all similar things going on, and yet each and every single person is truly a magical being. So I love bouncing off people and vibing off people. Say vibing, I'm not sure what vibing means. I think it's just when your wavelengths of your brains are attuned, and you're growing together.
I say your vibe attracts your tribe, isn't it?
Your vibe attracts your vibe attracts your tribe. Absolutely, that's so true.
And so that's one of the ways, connecting with your fellow chaos magicians, chaods, as you call them. And some other ways, or is that the only way that you go about getting your fill of that buzz?
No. So one of the ways that I like to do this, if I want to head out, let's say I'm going into the city, there's simply a sense of the mindfulness of it, of saying, well, these in Tibet, there's these monks who, when they go out and they're traveling to the market, they don't say I'm going to the market. They always add on the state of mind that they're bringing with them. So they'll say, I'm going to walk in the woods joyfully, or I'm going to the market happily, or I'm going to go and meet my friends. And they'll add the intention of what's going to tack along with that. And they'll state almost like their intention. It's almost like stating what you hope to achieve whilst you're out there. And just by mentioning it kind of happens, because then you're aware of it. That awareness and your intention manifests it. So I might go into Leeds and think to myself, well, today I really want to help someone. I really want to be there for someone. I want to help comfort someone. I want to give people an epiphany of some kind. And you have that intention held in your mind, and it will happen. So it's really interesting that you know, I was in a chemist called Boots. There's this, you know, chain, and there's a lady looking really upset, and she's got a basket full of things, but she's looking really upset. So I was like, well, I don't know this lady at all. I've never seen her before. But I just stand next to her and I say, is everything okay? And she looks at me like she can't believe someone's even talking to her. And she's like, no, it's not. I'm fine, thank you. And I know that that's a deflection. That means that she's not fine. Someone saying fine is not fine. So I said, well, I know this. I know I'm a complete stranger to you, and I know you don't know me from Adam, but I am Adam. That's the other name we go by. And if there's something you would like to share, you'd like to talk about, I'm right here. You know, I'd love to hear what it is. See if we can help you out with it. She looked really upset. So she looks at me for about like 3 or 4 seconds, right into my eye. Not eyes, just eye. And that's a long time to look. She's looking at me. And there was a lot of sadness in her eyes, a lot of pain. And I just announced it. So my thing is I announce my truth as soon as I know it. It's one of the tenets I live by. It's one of my little rules. So I just said, there's a lot of pain in your eyes. What's going on for you? And just came out. She bursts out crying, just comes out all of it. She has permission to release. And there was this release, and she just cried. And I didn't touch her, didn't hold her. If you touch someone, it actually brings them out of it. If you give them a kinesthetic signal, it can just stop them. So I didn't touch her, didn't hug her, nothing. I simply went and I grabbed some tissues, and I opened the pack of tissues, and I gave them to her. She started dabbing her eyes. And then we went for a coffee at a great little coffee shop called Lane's, right around the corner, and we talked. And it turns out she's going through a hell of a lot. She had, you know, her mother had cancer, and there was a relative that was having kidney failure, and, you know, there was talking about getting on a waiting list for an operation, all these kind of things. So there's a lot of stress. But the fact that I wanted to show up for someone and help somebody, it's almost like the omniverse out there just said, okay, you want that? Well, here it is. But it's not just for me, the universe responding to my thoughts and intentions. I think the universe works differently than a lot of the woo-woo would have it. Like I call it woo science, like pro science, but woo science. I think the real woo science of it is that the universe doesn't respond to your thoughts. Doesn't respond to your thoughts. I think the universe responds to actions. I think you take your actions and you command the universe into being, and I think that's how it works, because that's how it's shown up for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, stating the intention, but putting myself there, and people seem to reflect and show up for the intention I want to project that day.
And that's an amazing story. What, and it does sound like the way things work. I often have the similar experiences, but what was your intention on that day? Was it for service? Was it for, what was the particular one on that day?
Yeah, I just felt very, that day I was just really in the mood for just showing up for someone, helping someone. It makes me feel good. It's a selfish act, as our friend Johnny says, you know, it makes me feel good. And it's not just about that. I mean, there's lots of other things, you know. For instance, in Magick, in Chaos Magic, Magick is really the art of getting lucky on purpose. So it's a very similar thing, combining the intention with the action. In Chaos Magic, what you do is, let's say that you want to manifest something. You want something. Most of my sigils that I write, which are symbols of encoded intent and will, they tend to be for other people. So let's say that someone's going through something and they really need some money, and money would really help them. Now, it's not that writing a bunch of squiggles on a piece of paper is going to bring the money. That's not how it works. It's slightly different to that. But let's say that, you know, my first sigils are always about meeting women. They're always really selfish. And there's a guy called Grant Morrison who talks about, there's a disinfo speech, which you can Google, Grant Morrison disinfo speech, where he talks about the introduction to Chaos Magic. And he says the same thing, that all his sigils were just about women. And mine were as well. It's the first thing when you realize you can do. So I wanted to meet a tall redhead with beautiful eyes and lips. And kind of like, I wanted to meet my own, like, Julia Roberts sort of thing. And so I did a sigil for it. I cast a sigil for that, and way back in the day. And 24 hours later, I met her. The last sigil I cast for myself was on the 8th of December, 2016. And I cast a sigil for a partner, a spiritual warrioress, you know, like a conscious growth partner, someone who I could work with, someone who I could love with, someone who I could travel the world with, hit the ground running, and just be in the world with, side by side. And I met her in January. Yeah. So
amazing.
She was already a practicing magician as well. She was a resourceress, I call her.
Amazing. The power of sigil magic is real. I can attest for it myself. I actually ended up in Leeds the last time I cast a sigil.
Right.
For
all roads lead to Leeds, brother.
Yes, and that was quite amazing. It was for a friend of mine asked me, hey, I knew that they were in Spain. They were headed to Spain, and I knew they were there, but I didn't know that I was invited there. So, but she rings me up from Spain, going, she's a week away, going. She was there for a wedding, and she's like, hey, you know this wedding that I'm going to in a week? By the way, you're invited. And, I knew that, but so I was like, had no way of getting there, no really space in my schedule, no plans on being there. But I was like, I'm going to try the sigil. I was playing with sigils at the time, and wrote the sigil, charged it up. And again, like it was within 24 hours when I had a ticket. I had a ticket to Spain. Somehow, it was just like
it's interesting stuff, you know. It's I wish everyone knew about it. It's one of the biggest tools I have in my arsenal.
Where would you say people can begin to, like? Where would you send people off on their journey to start finding out about chaos magic and how to get an introduction and really start practicing?
Chaos magic. It depends what. So if you want a really, there's a guy called Phil Heen. I'll spell that for you. That's Phil. Heen is Hine. And if you get any of his books, he's got some really great introductory books about chaos magic. I wouldn't start with I started with Liebe Null. That's by Peter J. Carroll. Peter J. Carroll he took a lot of the teachings of people like Spare, and he brought them into the modern age. And chaos magic is not, the whole thing about belief in chaos magic is it's just a tool. So if I believe that I can cast a sigil by arranging things on my desk into a certain pattern, then that belief makes it so. And it's very much the whole, what I believe makes it so. Now, that's manifestation 101 anyway. Manifesting generators, they do that naturally. But the idea of being conscious of it, if you want a good introduction, I'd say Phil Heen. Phil Heen's books are brilliant. They're really down to earth, and they're very accessible. My journey, can I tell you my journey quickly? Do you mind?
Please do.
I'd love to have it, because people that know the history of Leeds will know this, because chaos magic really started in Leeds. I don't know if people know that. There was a bookshop in Leeds called The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and it was a great bookshop. God, I miss that place. It's on Burial Road. If you Google it, you'll find Sorcerer's Apprentice Leeds. You'll find an old picture of the old shop front. And I used to go in there all the time and have conversations and buy books and read, and it was just my favorite bookshop in the world. I got introduced to a lot of fantastic authors in there. It's where I found everything from Neil Don Walsh, Celestial Prophecy back in the day. The whole thing about the 10th Insight being the Mayans, they had transfiguration. They just, Gene Key 47, they just transfigured into another form. They went. So I got all of that first knowledge of that ancient woo in that place. And it turns out that when I was having these conversations with the guy that ran the shop, it was 95. I think I was 18. And he was saying, have you heard of chaos magic? And I was like, well, no, what's that? And he said, look, and he gave me a book. He said, take that away. If you like it, come back and buy it. And he gave me the book called Liebe Null, which is the first book by Peter J. Carroll about chaos magic. And I just read this entire thing in 2 sittings. The first day I was reading it, I looked at the watch afterwards, and it was 4 a.m. and I'd started about 11 p.m. So I'd read pretty much the whole book, got through most of it, and I just felt like just feel my mind. You know when you have those moments where you discover something and your mind just goes like that, like the GIF. It was just like that. And I went back and said, what else has he done? He hadn't written anything else. So anyway, as he did write more books, I got them all. Leave It Chaos. And the interesting thing about the Sorcerer's Apprentice is it got burnt down by religious fundamentalists some years ago. Some Christians decided that it was full of witchcraft and firebombed it, which is a real shame. People always attack what they fear, you know?
Mm.
But yeah, Phil Heen for an introduction to Chaos Magic. I can post some links that you can put up somewhere, and there's a few recommendations of great places to start.
That's an epic story there, and it's
read The Invisibles by Grant Morrison.
Ah, yes, another good one. That experience, you know, I definitely had that as well with books. Well, one of the ones that got me like that was The Mind's Eye by Hofstadter and Douglas Hofstadter and Daniel C. Dennett. It's a series of...
Did you say Denning?
Dennett. Daniel C. Dennett.
Okay.
Dennett. He's an artificial intelligence expert, and Hofstadter is the dean of philosophy, of Western philosophy in, I think, Harvard. Could be Harvard University.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this was just a collection of thought experiments, and yeah, just the writing, like it's a Pulitzer Prize winning book. Oh no, author. The Pulitzer Prize winner was Gödel Escher Bach, An Eternal Golden Braid, which is some of the pages in that have like mathematics, and it's like crazy reading this title. But the same thing. I sat for a night, and I had actually my new partner who was in bed. Her flatmate gave me the book, and she was in bed, and I started reading this book, and she wanted me to come to bed, and I was just in the book until the morning. I looked up, and the sun was rising, and I just finished the book. Like I read it in one sitting, a similar thing, and those moments where it sits with you, that kind of download, it just sits with you, and some of those concepts I'm still living today, you know.
Nice.
Yeah, it's crazy. Talking about just to rewind a little bit, the nomenclature, names. So you say you go by a few different names. I can relate to that. What can you tell me about Spartan Buddha? When I say Spartan Buddha, what does that mean for you?
Spartan Buddha is really not my own creation. It's a guy called David Zeff. Zeff is F0, and he came up with this character who is an exiled Spartan, and he's sort of sent out into the world. And I relate to that very strongly for past life reasons. The idea of having a system where you want to change an entire system, you can't do it just from within. You've got to go out, and you've got to find out what it is you want to bring, what the changes you want to bring, and you've literally got to go back and start. You've got to be that change, like the Gandhi quote, and you've got to start from it was an insurrection. So Spartan Buddha for me means warrior body, Buddha mind. That's how it is, to keep your body strong, because a lot of people in the spiritual sense, they tend to almost do one of two things. They'll either get really in their mind and they'll neglect their body, or people that get into physical exercise will put so much energy into enhancing their body that the mind is left behind. And for me, it's about balance. So the thing for me has always been martial arts tends to harmonize between those things, mind, body, spirit. It's martial artists that I've met that seem to have this down and really have it sorted. And yeah, there is a change I want to bring to the world. I want to have people more conscious. I want people to expand their mind but not forget their bodies. You know, don't eat sugar. Sugar's poison. Sleep well. Unplug your Wi-Fi. Turn your Wi-Fi off. If you've got plug sockets near your bed, turn them off before you sleep. Have it pitch black. Invest in a blackout blind so zero light comes in. get those deep sleep that eludes so many of us today. Have a blue light filter on your phone, your tablet, so that you're not squandering your melatonin, and just enhance everything. We need to go back almost to the ways we were in terms of how we slept before there was electricity, because there's so much energy in the air. There's so many Wi-Fi signals in the air. There's, turning off your own Wi-Fi signal is pointless if you've got a neighbor downstairs with theirs on. But at the same time, it's like, get a grounding pad or make a grounding pad. Get all the, just ground yourself before you sleep and get all the current and all the static out of your body, and you'll sleep so well. It's everything. It's the way we sleep, it's the way we eat, and then it's the way we move our bodies. And Spartan Buddha to me means the idea of having a strong body and an awakened mind. Buddha, the word Buddha is a title, it just means awakened. So the Spartan in the modern sense doesn't mean being a warrior and going out and kicking ass. Spartan in the modern sense tends to be used for describing a room, or let's say this room is Spartan weight. But Spartan doesn't mean going without or being frugal, overly frugal, or Spartan to me just means having what you require to do what you want to do. That's all it means to me. And not having excess. Like have excess by all means, in terms of you can make wealth, go ahead, but useless excess. If there's excess, if there's too much food in your fridge and it's going to go to waste, you're living an excessive lifestyle and you're wasting food. You're not being in harmony with people and the planet, and that's food that people could eat. So it's just about harmony. Spartan Buddha is a nice combination for me that brings the strength and the whole ideal of a warrior mindset with a Buddha mindset. So the warrior of light, the whole enhancing your strength, bringing strength so you can walk tall, so you're not slouching, and just carrying a posture well. Like I see you and you're not you're just there. And I'm right now, I've got my elbow on the table, so remind myself to just support my own muscles. So it's just a combination of two schools of thinking. Because the age of the warrior is over. We're not going to solve the world's problems with military problems. But I think that the spirit of the warrior is very much with us and must never be forgotten.
Yeah, cool. And it's the power in those reminders as well. Just the fact that you have those reminders, in your name, Hellequin. Is that the right pronunciation? Hellequin. And in things like the Spartan Buddha, or even like the Harlequin. And what is this one? What does that represent? Is that the Amadeus? Or?
No, that's a Spartan lambda. That's the Greek lambda for lacedaemonios.
Yeah.
Laconia. It's my laconophile side coming out. But that's just me. Yeah, they are good reminders. I've got a reminder of it every time I look at my own.
Yeah, amazing.
That's bullshit, by the way, from that stupid film that was in the film 300, where they all had that symbol on their shield. That's not how it was. Everyone had their own motif that was often handed down from their grandfathers and their fathers before then. That motif would stay in your family on the front of your hoplon, your shield, for generations, and it would be carried by your son and his son after that. And there was no uniform in the shield. That was the one thing that you absolutely personalized.
Customized.
Definitely.
Tell us more, when you talk about Spartans and this the idea of stoicism and the Stoics come to mind. Do you know anything about this, or do you have anything to share about Stoics?
Yeah, I love the Stoics. I'm very Stoic myself, but it's when I look at philosophies, I'm a big fan of the big Stoics. Seneca is a big one for me. Aurelius. And if you read Marcus Aurelius, he really, the whole Roman Empire borrowed a lot of the Stoicism that it got was from Sparta itself, and from the schools of thinking of standing as one, having your shields become a wall. That was all borrowed, and they enhanced it. But the Stoicism, the philosophy behind taking away from the style of fighting, Stoicism, I think it has its place. I like to be fluid these days. I don't confine myself to one way of thinking in the way that Bruce Lee wouldn't tell you to confine yourself to one way of practicing your martial art. We have these days mixed martial arts, and those people, when you've got someone, I come from a jiu-jitsu background, and that's my base. But when you've got someone who comes from a wrestling background, or someone who comes from a karate background, they're in the UFC or whatever, that's fine. But the modern fighters, they're coming from a mixed martial arts background, so they're learning everything at once. They don't have a base. They're learning it all at once, and those guys are the ones that are dominating. It's very interesting. The women too, and the idea of philosophy behind it is the exact same. Stoicism is like having a jiu-jitsu base, but it's just a base. You've got to add other thinking onto it, and not confine yourself to one thing. But Stoics have a big place for me. I'm a big fan, and it comes in very useful. It makes you very resilient. As long as you're open to change, as long as you keep an open mind.
And what are the basic tenets, like if you were to summarize it in an elevator pitch of Stoicism, what you've taken from it mainly?
Standing in your truth and not giving way to emotional responses. That, for me, Stoicism, one of the biggest things about it is, I would have complaints that I was unreadable. Like, so some of the women in my life have often said to me things like, I can't read you. I don't know where you are. And that's because I haven't announced it. And they didn't like that. And that wasn't a mystique. That wasn't something positive. They were very much meaning it as a complaint. So I sought to be less stoic in the sense I'd be more emotional and show more emotions and let them see who I am. But stoicism in the face of adversity is a different story. And because of the work I was doing, there was a need for adversity, and there was a strong need to. So my door's open so the cat can come in and out, but someone's just thrown something through my door post. Junk mail or bills. Yay, bills. In the face of adversity, emotional lack of control is a real problem. So stoicism for me is about maintaining a level of control, maintaining an emotional equilibrium. That's what it comes down to. Being the calm one when everything around you is chaos. That's stoicism to me. Holding fast in your truth, standing in truth, and all those aspects of it for me are positive. It comes in very handy in so many situations, and to just maintain composure and to withstand everything. And it's not about being stubborn. It can manifest as being stubborn. But stoicism for me just means being resilient and having your emotions in check.
Mm-hmm. That equilibrium is something that I can relate to, and coming back to, standing in these poses with Qigong is directly training yourself to be calm under pressure, calm under duress, under stress.
I was doing that 2 days ago, and I've thought of you actually, because I was getting to the 20-minute stage, and I was in horse stance, and everything was like turned into iron, and oh gosh, so good though.
So it's a complaint I get as well from the women in my life often, or not often, but sometimes, that there's that unaffectedness, and that it's like, I just want to affect you. I just want to be able to
let me change you. Let me influence you.
So I can relate to it, and I can also relate to that, becoming more dynamic and being more open and vulnerable, and allowing people to see me and really allow myself to be affected, but then to surf that and be able to watch myself in that as well. Be observant and have that awareness that you were mentioning earlier. So awesome. Thanks for that. There's a few things. There's some cool things that I've been thinking about from our last conversation. A few things I wrote down here, and we've sort of touched on some of them, but some of them we haven't. And we talked about martial arts, which is great. I'd like to touch on the Venusian arts at some point as well. Just a quick, your involvement in that. What comes to mind when I talk about Venusian arts, and your involvement in that, or your experience with that?
It was a lovely term at the time. I understand it. It's something that I've just kind of incorporated these days. Yeah, for everyone listening, I'm sure you've figured out by now that martial arts, being those of Mars, has a counterpart of the feminine of Venus, Aphrodite. So Aries and Aphrodite. Well, the arts of love, the ars amorata, and the art of wielding attraction and being aware of attraction, and it's an important awareness to have. In terms of seduction, I don't do any of that anymore whatsoever. I haven't done that for a long time. When I coach people now, my coaching is life. It's just life. If you figured out life, then everything else sorts itself out. If you have a problem talking with the opposite sex, sort yourself out in terms of the confidence and the competence you have. Bring your competence to a conscious level until it becomes unconscious competence, and everything falls into place, because you will automatically look like you have your shit together. And so women see that you have your shit together and unconsciously gravitate towards you. So I don't do any of the Venusian arts in the modern sense of the seduction community sense, but I certainly wield attraction. The gene key of vanity is an important one to improve the 3 levels of confidence. It starts with, the first one is vanity. It's I can improve my confidence and your confidence, but say, look, if you going to a salon, getting your hair cut, going into a shop and getting new clothing, that feeling you get when you emerge from that, you feel better, you feel like you've enhanced yourself, you carry yourself in a new way of enhancement. That's wielding attraction. But you can have that jump up any single moment. You can have that jump any single moment with pure intention. You can decide, you can switch that on. What happened? You got new clothing, but you saw yourself with new clothing. What happened? You got a haircut, but you saw yourself with new haircut. You don't need to see yourself. You can just visualize that and carry yourself like that at any moment. And people forget that. So that's the first level. Second layer is career. The car you drive, the physical material things, everything around us is a reflection of us. So what you do with your time, how you invest in the career, not as in like just earning money on the grind, but what are you focusing on your main time? What is the thing that carries you forward? What is the thing that you're giving your time to?
Yeah, I was about to ask for clarification. Do you equate career and vocation as the same thing, or but you just kind of
vocation, career? No, I think not. No, but my vocation is enlightenment. Hang on 1 second. So this is someone at the door. What's that? I have no idea what that is.
Frederick.
Where was I?
Vocation and career.
Yeah. So my vocation is education, in the sense of enhancing people into wakefulness. I think into being woke. I knew that would make you laugh, but it is, as corny as that sounds. That's what it is. I want people to be able to have the ability to step out and enhance every aspect of themselves. I like enhancing people. It makes me feel good. I like bringing people to a different awareness. So vocation and career are big, important distinctions. The discretion between the two is very important as well.
And how do you differentiate them?
Well, vocation is what you do with action according to what you believe, and career is often a path. Career has lots of connotations for me of being stuck on a path, whereas many careers are multi-tracked. But vocation is the thing that you'll always have, regardless of the career you're doing. You can go and you can work in a lime factory packing bananas or something, and your body's doing the same thing, but your mind is free. At the same time, if you work in a call center, they want your mind, your body, and your fucking soul. So your mind is not free, and that's why I can never work in a call center. But the vocation, if my vocation is waking people up and helping people better themselves on spiritually, physically, financially. They're the three ways I like to hang on, I just minimized your screen. Okay, hang on. What did I do? Okay, there we go. I mean, you got lost in the bottom rung of the hundreds of tabs I have open. I have 32 gigabytes of RAM. Sometimes I play the game of which frickin' tab is my sound coming from. That's a fun one. And yeah, so your vocation is the part that's always with you, regardless of what you're doing.
And that for you is what you mentioned, and helping people enhance themselves in those three areas. And so there's been other things that you've done. I know that writing is big for you. So I've loved reading some of your writing. I think we met through a forum where we read some of your writing. So yeah, tell us a bit about your writing journey and what that means to you and how that fulfills you. And
when I was 3 years old, I guess my mother wanted to give me a task so that she could not worry about me for 10 minutes, and so she left me with the television on and said something like, "I want to watch this program." It was nature. It was one of those nature programs with David Attenborough narrating. And here in the Amazon jungle, all that. And she said, "Can you watch it and tell me about it so that I don't have to miss anything?" And so she was asking me to report something. So I got a crayon and I started making notes whilst I'm watching this program. I was like, okay, this is the predator and this is this lizard. And I'm writing the words down, hunter and prey and all these different words and conceptualizing. But I'd just come up with a set of words to report from. And at 3 years old, that's quite a thing.
Yeah.
To write words in order of service so you can relay them to someone to give them as much information as possible. And I think my mother was amazed of how
organized.
Yeah, not only that, just how articulate it was, and I basically gave her the entire program, like step by step, and she was like, "Whoa, this is way too much information."
I wasn't
I gave her
expecting
the entire program step by step, and the interesting thing is to wire your brain like that at 3 years old, to start those synapses firing. I think that shaped my writing always, because I really enjoyed her reaction. She was so impressed and amazed. You want validation as a kid. You don't know there's even a thing of validation, but you're aware of it when your mother lights up and she's laughing and smiling, amazed at something you've done, and you feel great. So I've actually got on my Facebook, there's a whole thanks on a Mother's Day a couple of years ago about that episode, about how that started my writing journey, reporting on a nature program read by David Attenborough.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's what started it on.
And where's it taken you since?
I've done speech writing. I've done a lot of best man speeches. I've done a lot of coaching for public speaking. I'm pretty good at public speaking, but I enjoy it. I think the trick to being good at something is to enjoy it. If you don't feel good about something and you're not enjoying it, then people are going to pick up. Even if you have a perfect mask, people are going to pick up that you're not enjoying it. So I really enjoy writing. And where has it taken me? All around the world. I've gone all around the world with it. I've been lucky enough to get. I mean, I'm not going to say like I got some big break, because I don't think I did. I can tell you the day that I got my first job, how that happened. I was on hard times. My rent had gone up 3 times in the space of a year, and my wage hadn't. And so I was going to lose my place, and I got into rent arrears, and I had to leave. I had to leave the premises where I was, and I was pretty much on the street. I mean, I was crashing at people's couches, but there was a couple of nights where I literally spent the night walking around the streets or going to a 24-hour snooker center, and just sitting there watching TV. I've had I've had not like the rough times. I haven't slept rough for more than like 3 days in my life. So I'm not going to give you some sob story, but I was certainly in a bad way, and I had no prospects, but I could certainly write. And I remember just setting up a sign. It was this sign, and it just said poetry, £5. It was really audacious of me. I just thought poetry bag. It was a nice sign. It was all frilly, and I decided that I was going to sit there, and anyone that walked past, I'd say, "Would you like a poem commissioned?" And they would tell me it was always for a woman or something like that. The guys were surprisingly my best customers. They wanted, okay, let's see what we got.
So tell me that start again. So you've walked past some and seen a sign, or you made a sign?
No, I decided to make a sign.
Okay.
Poetry, £5.
Okay.
Which is a lot of money. So that's like asking for a lot of money back in those days.
So this is like this entrepreneurial idea. This came to you.
Yeah.
Cool.
I used to go to poetry slams, and I used to do all that stuff, and I used to think on my feet and freestyle stuff, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. And so I put up a sign. I thought, I need money. What am I best at? I thought writing's what I'm best at. So I put poetry, £5, and I did commission poetry for each individual. And I sat with them. I had a little camping stool that I bought for £5, and they would sit on it, and I would sit down with them and discuss the things that are important to them in their life and what they'd like to express, and I put it into a poem for them.
Amazing.
And I remember at the end of the first day, I had like 60 quid, and I was like, I should have been doing this for years,
Amazing.
I was just very lucky. I just found my niche. I just thought, what am I best at? And I remember putting the sign up, thinking that no one was going to come along. But yeah, I repeated this on Brick Lane, by the way, in London, and I did really well at that. I had to put my price up to like £12.
Amazing.
And yeah, it was good. I got pretty good at it. There's people out there that will recognize. I've had recognition from that. When I did it in Bristol, I went back to Bristol because I later dated a girl from Bristol. I went to Bristol, and I was walking with the girl at the time. Her name was Penny White. That was a great name.
Great name.
And
Penny
yeah, this
White.
guy said, you're that poet. It's like, he remembered me from years ago. And
did you have the eye patch back then, or?
No.
Yeah.
No, 2 eyes back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I just found out that I could exchange my talent for money, that's a career and a vocation, isn't it?
Amazing. So it's interesting that your first job was self-employed, entrepreneurial. Is that something that you saw around you? Was that influenced by your friends or your family, or?
I'll tell you where I got it from. I can't remember the film, but there was some film. I wonder if it was before Sunrise. I don't know. I don't think it was. There's some film somewhere back in the day where they're walking through the streets of Paris, and they're going past the Seine, and on the banks there's someone doing the exact same thing, doing commission poetry. That's where it came from.
Downloaded it.
Yeah, so it came from that. I know it came from a film. I can't remember which film. I don't think it was before Sunrise, because I think that was too recent. I think it was before that. I just remember that I'd seen it in a film.
Yeah.
In Paris, and I thought, well, I'll try that.
Give it a crack.
That looks easy.
And how long? And so that happened, and you made enough money to pay rent. And how'd the end of that story go?
I didn't make enough money to pay rent. But I was so amazed by the amount of money that I did make that what I ended up doing was I found a t-shirt printing. I found a t-shirt printing service, and I got my poems printed on. I had my words printed on the back of the t-shirt or the sleeves. Long sleeve t-shirts, and I used to sell them for £25 in the Corn Exchange. So I went from taking, on poetry.com, I think I've got over 200 poems on poetry.com itself under a few names. There's Adam No Shahi, there's Amadeus Hellequin, there's Amadeus Harlequin. There's loads of these names I was using, and Amadeus Rambo, all these rainbows, but with BEAUX, it's crazy. Crazy names. There's loads, depending on what mode I'm in. So there's loads of poems there. Song lyrics. I became a lyricist as well. I used to go into a studio and help bands find the lyrics. I'd start in the rehearsal studios my service was, I enjoyed it because I don't write songs in the sense of, I'm not proficient to a point where I can just bang out a tune, but I can hear music and find the lyrics to it. That's a real gift of mine. How I got into ghostwriting as well was, I was in a hostel around this time, actually, soon after that, and I was getting on my feet, and I was in a hostel called Ladybeck in Leeds, at Ladybeck Lane. Excuse me. Going back to about 1990, I think I want to say 1995, 96. And at the same time, you know, I was trying to juggle so many pies. I was trying to juggle pies. Pies can be juggled. Why did I say juggle pies? That's so weird. Anyway, I was juggling pies. Apparently,
you're trying to dip your finger in.
I think keep pies spinning. Keep pies spinning.
You're trying to dip your finger in juggling balls.
I'm dipping my finger in all these different pies. I'm also juggling and spinning on the plates that the pies are on. That's what it was. That's exactly it. I was in this hostel, and there was a divorced a man in there called Michael King going through his divorce.
Another great name.
And Michael King had a magazine called Leeds Life, or City Life Leeds, as part of the Northern Communications Group, which is still going in some form right now. And he needed writers. And he was telling me about how his magazine was down to a skeleton crew, and he had like Naomi Temple was writing under different names and all these things. And I was like, well, you know, I can do that. So I helped him. With get back on his feet. And he had a photographer called Jeremy Paul Cooper, and Jeremy Paul Photography in Leeds. I think he might be still going. He was doing wedding photography last time I saw him. And so we just had this team of like 4 people keeping this magazine going whilst he was losing his house. And, you know,
with this publication, what are we talking? It's like how many?
The circulation of, I think it was around 160,000 circulation in Leeds and Manchester.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and it was just a small magazine. And standard practice, the magazine was either free or really cheap, and you would just sell advertising in it. And so I would help him sell the advertising, and help him with the articles and the press releases and all that business. And then when he got on his feet, we became really good friends. I'm friends with his sons now as well, Adam King, and his son Gregory King nearly became the boxing champion of England.
Right.
He was a great father. He was a great dad to his kids. And he was a great friend of mine. I really liked his positivity under horrendous circumstances for him, when he could have easily been going through playing the victim, but he didn't. He refused to play the victim, and I refused. I wasn't a victim anyway. I was just getting on my feet. But we made a good team. He got some news that he was, at the same time, his other news, just to give you a picture, was he found out he had a brain tumor, and he had maybe 3 or 4 years to live.
Wow.
He lived a lot more than 4 years, and I think that was his attitude. I think that he just refused to quit, and he stayed around a lot longer than anyone expected.
Amazing. Well, those stories of adversity, they're super inspiring. I can't remember this one book I was reading. It's just like these amazing comeback stories of people who should have been dead or should have been down and out, and that they've just like come back to life pretty much, or defied all odds. You know, that I read this one book, and just after it was like a series of short stories that had all these stories of overcoming incredible adversity, and so empowering. You just want to go out there and just live to your fullest, and it's amazing to be around that. And that's why I love books so much, actually. It's and that's why I, attracted to you with your writing. I love reading and writing because I feel like I can surround myself with positive influences, or influences that I would like to try on, or perspectives that I'd like to see life from without leaving my house. I can just, especially in this day and age with Kindle and Audible and things like this, I can read anywhere in the world and have these books. So yeah, I absolutely love writing as well, but reading, I think I even love a little bit more.
Yeah.
Do you have any books written from you? Do you have actual books that you've completed, and where? Yeah. What are they? Where can you find them?
What I'm working on right now. So I'm a ghostwriter. So I help people who maybe don't have the time or the skill, usually a mixture of both, to write their own story, their biography, or even technical books. I do copywriting for websites, keyword optimization. I just use whatever form of, excuse me, whatever form of writing someone requires. I'm a wordsmith, so that's what I'm best at. So I tend to, being a ghostwriter is a bit like being an actor. You're acting as them. You're learning about that person. You're living their life through their memories that they tell you, or they're telling you these stories. And some of them are great storytellers, but for some reason, when it comes down to writing, they can't quite articulate themselves. And some people can articulate themselves and could probably do a better job than me writing their own story, but they just don't have the time.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the books that I'm trying to get off the ground now is there's a guy called Andreas Aristoteles, and he's a friend of mine. I used to work with him. His grandfather served in World War II. He was an SAS soldier, Cypriot. But his stories from that time, I mean, this guy is absolutely sharp as a tack. You know, he's right there, and even though he's old and he's infirm compared to even how I was just a few years ago, his first concern at all times is other people. You know, are you all right? You know, it's like, that's how he is. He's looking after someone else right now as we speak. He just, you know, you cannot look after this man. It's amazing. And I'd love to get his story and tell his story. I'm working with Andreas at the moment to sit down with him and get interviews with him, because I really want his story to be a book, because it's a story worth telling. And these are conversations with him worth having. It's not there to glorify war or anything like that, but I have a strong military family and a musical family. They're the two vocations of most of the men in my life. And I'd really like to tell his story of the things that he experienced, and a lot of it heartbreaking, and a lot of it is horrifying, but it also has a lot of beautiful moments. I'd love to tell his story. I think it would really make us very thankful for the people that we don't normally hear about. And it's not like an SAS book of, you know, it's not Chris Ryan. This is a very human tragedy, but told beautifully. That's what I want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
And he's still around to tell the tale.
And that's something that that's in the process. That'll be out soon, later.
Preliminary stages at the minute. I've got that's the next thing I want to do. I just completed a book, but I can't say too much about it. It was for an athlete.
Okay.
The way, I don't know if you know the way ghostwriting works is.
Yeah. Are you allowed to share? Are you allowed to say titles or not really? Yeah.
Well, it depends on the agreement you've got.
Depends on
a lot of ghostwriters. Like, for instance, if you've heard of Tom Clancy, right?
I have, yes.
You've heard of Tom Clancy. Now, when he's not with us anymore, but when Tom Clancy was a big name and his stories were recognized, much like an artist who's become so successful that they can hire apprentices to produce their work under that direction, Tom Clancy was very much an overseer of stories, and it was ghostwriters that wrote a lot of the Tom Clancy books, who were just familiar with his work and just wrote in his style. You know, Tom Clancy didn't sit down and write books at that stage. He was lending his name, licensing it out. And that's what he did with video games. There's Tom Clancy's video games all over the place. There's Tom Clancy films. A lot of them are from books. The IP of the game, the PC and Xbox game, I think it's on PlayStation, called gosh, what's it called? The Division. That's from a Tom Clancy IP. So, you know, it was all ghostwritten. Yeah, you become an actor with a pen. You sell. You get the rights to write the book, and you get a dividend of the sale, and you might just get a fee, an upfront fee. But you have to give away your writing, and it becomes in someone else's name. I've done the same with songs. I had a surreal experience. I'd written a song, and I knew it was one of my best lyrically. And I was driving through Los Angeles in 1997. Yeah, and I heard it on the radio. I was like, "Ooh, that was one of those moments of like, ooh, I made it," you know.
Amazing.
But you haven't made it, because I sold the rights to that song for $5,000. You know, that wasn't a publishing deal. I sold it was a good song, and lyrically it was great, and I'm really proud of it. But it's It's not mine now. You know,
it's how it's amazing. It's quite a skill. I imagine you'd have to get into the mind of the person and see their mannerisms and the speech pattern and have to study that quite in depth.
Yeah, the rhythm, definitely their rhythm. You pick up on their rhythm because a writer writes. I write in my own rhythm. So one of the things the way I know that I'm writing, that I've really nailed it, is when they read it back to themselves and they say, "Oh, this sounds just like me." And what they mean is in their head, it sounds just the way. That's when you know you've nailed it. There's a lot of revisions though. There's a lot of drafts. You know, there's a lot of like, I would never say that. That happens sometime, or you reword this differently. There's a lot of that goes on. But if you're good at your job and listening in the first place, that's minimal. I love it. I love sitting. You know, I'm not writing books with people that aren't interesting to me. I'm telling the people I choose my client.
Yeah. How long's it been like that for? How long's it been that you like, oh, I'd love to work with this person? Yeah. Was it the other way at some point?
Yeah. How I got my break was I'd submitted some work to a publishing house, and they said to me, "We can give you a book deal, but we don't want one book from you. We want 3." And that seemed reasonable, but I was like, with that character in that book, it was very much that's one book. But I had another. I said, I've got another book I'm starting, so I had this other book, and the characters in the books were related actually, but it was different stories. And she said, "This is excellent dialogue." You know, that was the feedback. It was the dialogue is like, they're like real people, you know, really vivid. So I knew that my dialogue for the characters in the books, because it gets to the stage when you're writing a novel, the characters like, I can't wait to find out what they're going to do next. You know, I'm writing them. I'm like, I can't wait to get back and see where this goes. That's when it becomes addicting. And that's my favorite part of the process of creating a character. But the great thing is there's characters out there that are more fascinating than anything I could create. There's real people. And I find I don't read that much fiction. I don't read much fiction. I read mostly nonfiction.
Likewise.
Yeah, that's because I feel like fiction is an indulgence, and I want to learn. I'm wanting to just enhance myself all the time. Now, I'm not saying fiction can't enhance people. It does. There's lots of fiction out there or fictionalized versions of historical events that really enhance the way of thinking. So I'm not
science fiction. I do enjoy futurism and stuff like this as well.
Exactly right. So you know, no one's gonna knock that. I mean, you know, but even though I can create a character, I found that it was just as satisfying, if not more so, than to find a character out there that with a real story to tell, and not embellish or fabricate or elaborate or anything, but just tell their story in the way that it emotes, that it causes an emotional response, because a good story will inspire an emotional response anyway. So I found that I could do that and take someone's story and retell it. Sure, with a bit of my style. There's a lot of creep in there where your own stuff goes in, and sometimes I'm really cheeky. Sometimes I say, look, I know you wouldn't say that, but let's leave this in. I beg them, please let's leave this in. And they go, no. And you've got to convince them why it works. So there's a lot of like where you put in you're infecting
flavor, your own Salt Bay.
Yeah, very much so.
Bit of flavor on there. Yeah, amazing. What are some of the principles of? You said a good story will emote. You know, will induce an emotion. That sounds like a principle that is for good writing. Then I imagine that could mean that could be applicable on a tweet, on a Facebook post, on an Instagram update, or on a love letter on whatever kind of, on an email. So that's why I love principles. Are there any other principles that you feel are important when it comes to good writing or good storytelling?
Yeah, principle is so I used to write my first ghostwriting was really boring technical stuff, like taking when the days of SEO were emerging, when the Google 440 keyword optimization was a thing, and old technical articles needed to be brought into the modern age by using the keywords in the right place to bring them to the search results. You know, the best place to hide a dead body, they say, is on page 2 of Google search. So you wanted to get things in the top 5 and optimize keywords. And so I made some money. You know, you can make back then it was like £300 to £400 a day, eventually commanding £500 a day when you're assured that you can get someone on the front page. And in a couple of days, you've got somebody that's #1 search if you've done it right. So I'd be doing these technical documents of all for sales, cosmetic products, auto products, clothing, anything. But the point of it was, my principle, and the key standout principle for me is, even if I wasn't interested in it, or if I didn't know anything about the subject, I wanted to make the writing engaging and fun and witty. Witticism was always, my favorite talk on TED, and many people's favorite talks on TED, is the Ken Robinson one.
Yeah.
And it's like watching a stand-up comedian. Now, it's a joyful thing to watch, and it's masterfully executed. And I just think that kind of same principle is, even if you didn't care about the subject, you should still enjoy reading it. So I've written some truly boring articles, but I've made them like fun. And so I want people to get something out of it if they read it. I want them to like, there's one time I used a really an obscure word, and straight away I said in brackets, Google it. Because it's a really fun word to Google, It's a fun word to Google. The word was defenestrate, which became one of my favorite words.
Defenestrate. So
we're talking about the framing of a subject. And when you want to do away with, and when you've done with that subject, defenestrate it. Brackets, Google it. Means out of the frame, throw it out of the window. Defenestrate, throw it out of the window. Came from a tragedy, the defenestration of Prague. Look at that, it's very, very fun. Well, I mean, not fun for those guys. You literally got thrown out of the window. But it's a great thing if you visualize throwing something out the window. If you're angry, do this. Defenestrate something. If you're really angry and you want to get rid of some anger, visualize picking something up, like something the focus of your anger, and visualize yourself chucking out the window. It makes you feel great.
It'll make you chuckle as well.
Or physically do it. If you live on, if your window's big enough, throw it out the window. You feel much better.
Physically do it. Amazing.
Chuck something out the
window. That's actually giving me some inspiration right now, because I'm in the middle of writing some assignments for my MBA. So adding a little bit of wit in there, I imagine, would give me a couple of more points from the markers perspective. Cool, Bananas. I think a few things that I would like to hear from, a couple more things, probably.
Cryptocurrency.
If you got the time. Yep. Money, wealth, cryptocurrency. Yes. Tell me about these, your relationship to wealth, and your relation, and what you're doing currently with the cryptocurrency and the mining and such.
We're living in a really interesting time. There's the chance now for sovereign wealth to come to the people in the form of cryptocurrencies, because Bitcoin is an easy example to make. What Bitcoin did was have a proof of work currency, where all this processing power is hashing out into an algorithm and essentially solving a puzzle. What you've got is processing power devoted to solving a puzzle. And when you solve this bit of the puzzle, when you've contributed to it, you'll get paid a block, which is worth, so much for Bitcoin. Let's use Ethereum as an example. So when you get a block of Ethereum, that's 5 Ethereum. But it takes too long to process that solo. So what you're doing is you're working with teams of other people around the world who have these graphics processing units grinding away at this puzzle. And when they discover a bit of the puzzle, and let's say someone finds it, you're in a pool. And instead of taking it for yourself, you put it back in the pool and you split that Ethereum up amongst everyone in the pool. And anyone that finds it splits amongst the pool. And overall, that reduces time. And so what that does is, essentially, it's a proof of work concept. You're proving that your graphics processing units have done this work and have hashed out this Ethereum, and you get a share of it. And it's putting a lot of power into the hands of people away from the banks. The banks are getting wind of it now. They're trying to find ways to tax this, trying to find ways to mimic it. Russia's central bank is now working on a digital currency. And so anybody can buy a graphics processing unit and buy a motherboard and buy some RAM, a crappy old sell their own Skylake chip, and they can mine cryptocurrencies. The trick is to mod the BIOS and get them working on the lowest voltage to squeeze out the highest hash rate. But that's boring. What's interesting to me is this. The idea of having sovereign wealth to the people consciously, I think that's the beginning of the end of the old paradigm. I think that's the beginning of the end of fractional reserve banking.
Mm.
I think that's the beginning of people being able to be self-sufficient. Now, if everyone's doing it, does it reduce in its value? Yeah, it does to an extent. But with the right currency and with the right holding of the right coins, you can have a lot of growth. You can have a lot of wealth that comes from pure computing power. Now, going back to taking Sparta as an example, Sparta, you think of the world's first professional army, but why were they able to have a full-time professional army? Because they had enserfed people, slaves essentially, working land and feeding each household. Each family had a strip of land. Now, thankfully, most places in the world, the days of enserfdom is behind us. Not many people have slaves anymore. And so the machines become the helots. The machines become the enserfed, automated providers, enabling us to be professional full-time arse kickers. We can go out into the world and focus on other things that are important. Universal basic income is one much touted option of how things could work in the future. But I think a lot of the world's problems can be solved with cryptocurrencies and taking the world's finances into the blockchain. I think blockchain is the future because of its transparency, because of its speed, its efficiency, its accessibility with a little education. I just think it's the future. I think blockchain is the future. And the interesting thing as well to me, if I may continue a little bit.
Please do.
This idea of grinding away 9 to 5, my machines bring in more than the minimum wage. So they're my farm, they're my money farm. It's actually got to stage now where I've opened it up to invite people in, because I'm like, hang on a second, if the projections are correct here, and they are, if I go from 500 mega hashes to 3 gigahashes, I can lift up a lot of people around me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on now having a special cool room with all temperature controlled, with an array of these machines hashing away. And I'm saying, come in, put $1,000, $2,500 in. And you're gonna, at the very, very least, double your money.
Amazing.
At the least, it's all very interesting. I'm really wanting to bring this to the common knowledge. The blockchain is the future. And how weird it would look if someone brought out a checkbook and pen and tried to pay for something now. How weird that would look. I used to watch my grandfather writing his checks out. It looked so graceful. I thought he could write money. I just thought he was amazing. I remember him paying for the first microwave. It was like stupidly expensive, like £400. Microwaves used to be 400 quid. And he wrote a piece of paper. I thought, wow, my grandfather's writing is worth a lot of money. That's probably another influence of why I thought writing was good, But how weird that would look in the modern age to pull out a checkbook. I think in a few years, that's how weird paying with money is going to look. Cash money.
It almost already does with the technology of you're tapping.
Well, I was living in Norway for 4 years, and they're not even allowed to take cash if you work in places that handle food because it's unhygienic. So everything was contactless. But I think we'll have a DNA debit in the future. I think our wallets, our crypto wallets, and crypto isn't even the right word. Crypto comes from an old Spartan word, crypteia, and it means hidden. They had a secret police force called Crypteia. And, it's not hidden. Cryptocurrencies aren't hidden anymore. They're here. They're here to stay, and they're not hidden at all. They need to change their name from cryptos. But I think that we'll have all our wallets tied to our DNA, and we'll do a retina scan or some kind of bio thing, or a voice recognition 3-tier thumbprint retina scan, and then, whatever it is.
And then we'll
pay for everything without any kind of physical transaction.
And we'll have a lot more time to spend on our vocation.
Very much so. That's where I think it's going. So yeah, my mining company that I'm setting up is called New Sparta.
Amazing. And yeah, that's something that you've invited select people, or you just put it out there and see who's put their hand up?
Well, actually, anyone that invests in it, I make a loss. I'm not drawing any profit from it. My profits, I'm drawing profit, but my profit's going back into the mining rig.
Yeah.
To expand it
into the cool room.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm jumping on board that, so I'm definitely looking.
Yeah, anyone that, if someone comes on board and gives $2,500, I lose money because I'm making them money. Yeah. That $2,500 goes to buying more graphics processing units, expanding the rigs, and building the gigahash.
And are you educating on how other people can do the same thing?
Yeah, I can set you up. I can teach it. There's actually a really interesting currency that I'd like to give some mention to. That's nothing to do with me, but it's got a very interesting philosophy behind it, and it's that one that you commented on.
Yeah.
Because that's Kaiser, and he's an interesting cat. I've been watching him for some time. But if you link to his video under this chat, and he describes perfectly what cryptos can do for the modern age in a spiritual and financial sense.
Do you have a link there? Or?
Yeah, I do. I can send you a link right now. I mean, this is the dream, right? I mean,
you can put it here in this chat here.
It's all very tempting. Yeah. So this is the link of the main one. The pre-beta is launched right now. So it's called Sovereign Keys. Sovereign Keys are a new kind of cryptocurrency designed to empower and facilitate humanitarian peoples and organizations that are creating systems and structures that provide for basic rights of humankind, which we believe to include unlimited and unconditional access to nutritious food, clean water, electricity, basic technology, education, and comfortable housing. Our currency is distributed through decentralized autonomous organizational principles, which means you get to help us decide how to distribute our currency as an equal voter with the rest of us. In the same way that banks and bankers become some of the most wealthy people on this planet, so too can we become wealthy beyond imagining by creating and using an economic system built on abundance and giving love forward. This project is a major gravitational point for all unity-aligned peoples to come together. Each individual who chooses to participate in our pre-launch will earn an initial sum of tokens that will be exchangeable for hundreds to tens of thousands of US dollars in the future, depending on the success of the currency. By utilizing group consensus, decentralized, hive mind, Hellenic principles to distribute our currency, we are maximizing action and efficiency towards literally creating the change we all wish to see. And then there's a link, asc.ai/keys beta.
That's the one.
And that will take you to ASC, which is Awakening Sovereignty Collective. And yeah, it's very interesting stuff. If you look on Facebook, a guy called Dakota Kaiser, he's the guy that's doing this. And he's got a video, which I'll link you to, where he explains the principle of what the future of blockchain can do for the future of humanity. I'll link to that video right now.
Amazing. It's shift happens. Shift is happening.
Why?
There it is.
Best answer that.
Okay, so I'm gonna put this in the chat now.
Thank you. Amazing. It's been good to catch up, brother. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be picking up some of those keys, by the way, from Dakota. I'll be putting some money in that. I like ICOs. Stratis. If anyone knows, if anyone wants a hot tip, I'm holding a lot of Stratis right now. Polybius, but Stratis is the next big one, I think. Stratis is around $10. When I told people to buy Ethereum, it was $8. And people scoffed at me and said, nah, it's not going to go anywhere. $8 I told people to buy it. When I told people to sell it, it was $232.
Amazing. Amazing. I think I'll have to have a go. Like, you never know if you never go.
I'm a metals trader. I come from a metals background. I'm up there with rhodium, palladium, platinum, gold, and silver, and lithium. And Yeah, lithium is going to be another big one again, the next jump. I think rhodium is not going to be produced in South Africa. It's going to be very hard to get rhodium in 4 to 5 years because of what Zuma is doing in South Africa. So Deutsche Bank ETF, yeah, I think if people try to invest in rhodium, I think that investment will be a huge investment because 85% of the world's rhodium comes from South Africa, and no one's going to buy it from him in about 5 years. Lithium, check out lithium. Still a safe bet. So yeah, and Stratis. That's my big tip for the cryptocurrency. Stratis.
Beautiful. I'll check it. What I wanted to maybe end on. I'll see if you wanted to share anything in particular, because my big thing is obviously waking as well, awakening, and I see a planet where in the universe, you know, in galaxies far, far away, that we're looked at as this Earth place is, oh, that's that place where they're really mindful and they practice that mindfulness thing. And, you know, this is something that I can see happening in future. And my whole thing is, you know, getting into the zone or getting into flow. And it's just something that I really am interested in, is how individual people get into flow or get into present time or get into these states of mindfulness. So for you, are there particular things that you like to do or practices that you engage in that help you do that, or some principles around that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I have a morning routine that I can share with you.
Amazing.
So when I wake up, the first thing I do is I put the blackout blind up. I open all the windows, open all the windows in the bedroom, open all the windows in all the house, get airflow going out. I'll get all the light streaming in. I'll breathe. I have a yoga mat just down here, and I'll do some stretches. I'll do some conscious breath work. I like to look at the sun and just take in the sunlight and just almost breathe it into my body, like I'm just breathing good fresh air into my body. Drink a good liter of water when I wake up. Good liter. Even when it's
raining and cloudy, you look at the light of the sun.
You can absorb plenty. In sunlight, there's lithium. Lithium is part of sunlight. You're absorbing. You know, they used to give lithium for mood stabilization. You don't need to take a pill of lithium for mood stabilization. You just look at the light. The light spectrum, even that permeates through the clouds, there's lithium in that. That's a good thing to see. On the levels that you see it, these are, you know, ridiculously small quantities of this metal, but it's there. And the whole gland that you've got in your third eye that takes in this stuff, it permeates well-being throughout your body. Just getting out and walking. You know, I like to have my morning coffee and I walk around the block. I wait an hour until I've woken up so my cortisol levels subside before I have my coffee. I do a half calf. I don't like to get too wired in the morning. I'll do some calisthenics, just some standard strength and conditioning. I have some resistance bands and some these are fairly light weights, but the interesting thing about these weights is I offset them. So this one's much heavier, and you'll see that they're asymmetrical. I like to imbalance myself purposefully to cause my muscles to have to work in concert. And so I'll walk around with weights, and when I've done load-bearing walking, I'll swap those weights to the other hand. Someone I've got to give a shout out to, a guy called Raymond Green, who is expert in all this stuff. Body movement, weight offsetting, load-bearing, ruck walking. Best strength and conditioning exercise in the world. Getting a backpack with some weight in it and just going walking, especially if you imbalance yourself and then transfer that weight over against your core aligned. Yeah, there you go. Having good weights.
Always walking around with that thing.
To simulate high altitude training, really good stuff. I do jiu-jitsu, so every single bit of oxygen I can get is just really useful. So a training mask is really good to have on, which is simulating high altitude. So when you take that off, you've got so much more oxygen. Opening up your nasal airways, getting your slowing down, getting the conscious breath work to come back, getting the tick-tock out of our bodies, getting the energy cycling through our bodies, in and out, inhalation and exhalation. And that's part of the morning routine. So there's so much. That'd be an entire subject in itself. The whole way that I operate with regarding that,
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah, it comes to drink water, don't eat sugar, sleep well. Sleep is a weapon, Raymond Green says. Look at Raymond Green. Just send him an email. He's my business partner in New Sparta as well. And I mean, the man is a Spartan. The way he operates, he's just great. I love the man. He has people on his property for a week, and he just coaches them in all this enhancement, this physical, spiritual, financial.
He's in Leeds, is it?
No, he's in Kentucky.
Okay.
Yeah, I met him in Vegas a number of years ago. Good guy.
Amazing. I have to go and track him down.
Yeah, he's
download some of these enhancements, and maybe he'd like to have a chat as well.
Well, he's no liberal, but he's like the counter to my leftism. He's my counter. He brings balance to the force.
Amazing. Yeah, so we need someone like that in our lives.
You do. You need. That's a great point. I don't like just people that agree with me around me all the time. I like people that disagree with me.
Yeah.
I like people that challenge my ideas. And he and I have great conversations because politically we are very different, but consciously we're the same. And we challenge each other a lot. So, yeah. But can I give a plug to my business?
Please, I want you to plug your business. I want you to share links where we can find you and follow up, and where people can connect with you.
We're operating with a level of transparency as a company that few companies dare to do. I'm showing exactly what figures are coming in with my blockchain, and I'm showing exactly what the long-term plan is. I've taken on 12 investors so far. The first round of 12 is paid in $1,000. The rest will pay in $2,000. And for that, what's going on is New Sparta Mining is taking your money.
This is US dollars or?
Say again?
US dollars?
2,000 US, yeah.
Yeah.
We're taking your money and we're using it to enhance the rigs, and we're building up towards 2.5 gigahashes of speed. Now, we're going to be offering higher rates than our competitors. We are going to be making a loss personally, because all the profits are going to our investors and to the rig, because we want people to believe in the power of crypto mining, and we want to get the biggest, best, fastest rigs. The technicians that I've hired, that I've got on board, are the absolute best in the world. I'm good at modding these BIOS and squeezing every amount of juice of power out of these graphics cards for the least amount of power going in. I undervolt them and overclock them with the timings, and that's an art in itself. But the technicians I've got that I'm hiring, it's a very exciting time. And we're just taking your money and we're investing it in the rig so that we can share out even more hashing power. And we're not just mining one currency. Our technology that we've got is auto switching between all the cryptocurrencies to find the ones with the most profit. And this is all automated. This is why I'm saying it's New Sparta, because this is all automation. These are the helots. These are feeding us. They are auto switching between the currencies. And I've got them wired into Alexa. So I can say, Alexa, reboot mining rig 4. Alexa, switch from mining Ethereum to Ethereum Classic, or switch from Ethereum Classic to Zcash, and they'll do that. So I've got a level of operation that I think is the next big thing, and the fact that our program will auto switch between the currencies to get the most profitable ones, I think that's because normally that has been done manually. I think that's puts us ahead of the game.
Surely that's patentable.
It's easily done. If you know any programming, you can anyone can program.
Open source, baby. Open source. I'm teasing you.
Open source.
I was a bit of a stab at the old Apple.
Yeah. So if you want to get in touch with myself, it's my name, Amadeus Hellequin @gmail.com, and I'm going to be setting everything up for the page in the coming months. We've got, right now we're just taking on investors to fund the next round of rig building. It's really hard to get the cards at the minute because a lot of them aren't coming out of China. AMD and NVIDIA, when they're making these cards and assembling them, state officials from China basically come knocking on the door and saying, we're buying all these cards and there's nothing you can do about it because they're setting up these mining farms. So it's a struggle now to just buy this hashing power. But we are going to have an operation at the end of it that I believe will result, hopefully, in people not needing to work. If you've invested enough you'll be able to draw enough money from that will be a nice supplemental income that you can drop the amount of work you do, and your income will be such that you can start investing your time where it's required elsewhere. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. And so it's just by email is the best place to contact you?
I'm on Facebook, Amadeus Hellequin. There's a whole thread there about the mining operation. There's a page called the Ether Revolution. There's a few things in the works, but New Sparta Mining is the company, and that's all going through right now. It's all being set up.
Amazing.
It's taking up about half my time at the minute. When I was mining casually. It was nice to see the Bitcoins coming in, and then Bitcoin got much too hard to mine, and so I switched to other currencies, Litecoin and Dash, and Dash exploded. But I had a really good break with Ethereum. I bet on Ethereum when it was like dollars,
Amazing.
Single figure dollars, and it went up to 232, and now it's at 250 today. It's trading just under $250. So I did well with that, and I realized I can bring people up now. I mean, I literally am taking money out of my own pocket for any investor that comes in because I'm paying them, but I want to get the big rigs.
Let's do it. I'm in.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for the chat, brother. It's so good to see you.
You're welcome.
Talking about sleep being a weapon, I think I need to get some of that. It's 11 p.m. over here, and I got to know.
Oh yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the call. Yeah, thanks. I like that. Thank you so much, and I want to say thank you for inspiring me as well. When you go live and I see you, like, whether you're churning out lyrics or whether you're talking about Qigong, it's a good reminder of centered. I'm not a selfish person, but I think I'm self-centered. My door's slamming because it's getting windy and I've left it open, so I need to go close it. But thank you for reminding me as well to be more centered, and thank you for your input.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Let's really appreciate you. Love you, brother.
I appreciate being appreciated, bro. And we'll chat again soon.
Yes, mate.
I'm certain of it.